your muscle cells, like it's a single cell, is massive. It's one of the biggest cells in your body. It could run like your whole arm, a whole muscle cell. So now you've got all this space and all this machinery, and you have to tell it what to do. So those satellite cells come into the muscle and they start telling the areas that are growing what to do.
Welcome back to episode 55 of my podcast called Science and Sports. I'm your host, Simon, as usual, and today I'm joined by Dr. Brandon Roberts. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, Simon, thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure talking to you today. Before I let you talk a little bit about yourself, I want to give you a brief introduction too. You're a PhD, a sports scientist, a coach, and also an athlete. So it's an honor to talk to you today and to learn a little bit more about you, about your roles, your jobs, maybe. So before we dive a little bit deeper into the episode and the topics, can you give me a quick introduction about you?
Yeah, of course, definitely. So I'll give you the educational route and then like in parallel the experience route. So I did my undergraduate degree in microbiology or molecular biology, and I really liked hard science, right? So cells and things like that. And I thought I was going to go to med school, didn't quite make it. But during college, I fell in love with exercise and I had played sports my whole life. And I thought, is there a way for me to combine those things? And there was. It's like human performance, essentially, right? And so at the time, molecular exercise physiology was getting really kind of popular. And so I went and did my master's in human performance, and I worked with a couple different teams, like a normal strength coach would, football, soccer, whatever. Um, Kept training in the gym, kept playing sports. Um, and I got to do my PhD, and my advisor was kind of like, hey, you could go be a strength coach or a sports scientist, um, or you could go your PhD and do research on the same thing. And I was like, okay, well, that's a good, that's a hard decision, right? That's what a lot of people struggle with. Do I want to be a practitioner or a scientist? And you can actually be both. So I ended up doing my PhD in muscle biology for a few years and personal training on the side and kind of learning the ropes of that field. Um, did my postdoc, which is like a residence or fellowship in exercise medicine and muscle growth and nutrition. So that brought a nutrition component in. And during that time, I did a lot of online coaching. So I learned that world a little bit and had worked for a couple different companies that I was like the chief science officer or whatever. Um, and then I finished with that, commissioned in the Army, where I do a lot of performance and environmental research for the past 4 or 5 years. And now I've just pivoted a little bit towards pharmacology, so drugs, and how those affect the body. And kind of in tandem with that, I've been a natural, not a professional technically, a natural bodybuilder since my PhD, so 2016-ish. And I've competed a couple times, made it to worlds, didn't win anything, finished like, I don't know, 10 out of 15 or something. But I've always loved training, loved that physical component of life, and loved learning about it too. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. So yeah.
Where did your love for sports or for the sports science aspect comes from? Did you do
Yeah,
sports before?
I did. So I played like growing up, I played soccer a lot. I played football and baseball too, but soccer was my love. And so as I got into training, like you get into the gym and you want to like optimize everything, right? At some point in your life you go through like an optimize phase or like, hey, I want to be get the biggest muscles or run the fastest or be the strongest. Um, so that's where the sports science came in was I knew science existed in that field, but I had not been exposed to it. So that's where I had to go learn a bunch about it. And then applied a lot of things, did some strength, a ton of different strength and conditioning programs, tried the different hit and the different modalities of training, everything from, bodybuilding to CrossFit to martial arts. So a little bit of everything. And it's fun to do that.
You just mentioned that you started doing bodybuilding when you did your master's degree, I think.
Yeah,
Do you think it helped you as a bodybuilder? Did you have this scientific background?
I think so. Yeah, I would say a lot of bodybuilding culture, it's getting better, is very what we call bro sciency, right? So it's like you go to the biggest guy in the gym, you ask them what they do, and then you do something similar, right? And sometimes science kind of supports those ideas, and sometimes it doesn't. So I think in terms of helping me percentage wise, probably like 20 to 30%, but it also kept me out of a lot of trouble, I think. That's the other thing is like I didn't do things because I knew better because the science said not to. Whereas somebody else might be training in a bro split once one muscle group a day for the week, and now I'm doing twice a week muscle groups, and so I'm probably growing a little more than they are or what I would grow at if I did the same thing.
Do you think it's an interesting topic you just mentioned with the splits and the training routines? I talked to a nutrition analyst here in Germany the other day, and he talked to me about your body composition and that it might affect how you should split your week. Do you have any like
So
research about that?
so I haven't seen any. If we think about why that might be a good idea. So I don't want to say it's a bad idea, but why it might be a good idea is if your body composition, say you got a lot more fat on you, or maybe you're newer to training, um, that could suggest that maybe you don't need to train as much to get the same effect, or maybe in training you want to do the least amount you can do to get the most amount out of it, right? So that if I'm doing 10 sets, and let's say I have high body fat, I'm newer to training, and I get a certain amount, and then 5, 10 years later I'm doing 15 sets, that's not that big of a jump. But if I start out at 15 sets and I either overtrain or get an injury or something, there's not a lot of room for me to grow. So I would say maybe in that aspect. Otherwise, I haven't seen a lot of data to suggest a certain type of body composition should train a certain way.
Yeah, maybe also about the fact that you or some guys do a faster recovery or faster adaptation to certain training aspects. Maybe that's
Yeah.
also what he suggested in that. Let's say for me example or in my case, I should do like a split for each muscle group and train again when I'm not fatigued anymore. And for some guys, it's more beneficial to do, like you described, like a different set of splits. So that was a really interesting topic he mentioned, but I couldn't find any research, and I thought I'll ask you for a quick for a quick question. Yeah,
Yeah, and to expand just a little bit on that, um,
sure.
I think the idea there is if it's based on recovery, right? And if you can get away with like a upper lower split, so let's just throw the weeks out the window. Say day one upper, day two lower, and day three, if your upper body's ready to go, like sure, train it again, right? And then let's say you go through another cycle, and then it's day five. Well, now maybe you're not ready, so you skip a day and you move on. So the recovery aspect I could get behind for individualizing training to yourself,
Yeah.
for sure.
What about now? Again, another question about this topic. What about the let's stick to your programming. You say you have upper split, lower split. You do your upper body session, and on your lower body session, you still feel fatigued in your upper body. Does it is your gain you can have from your lower body day the same when you have your still fatigued upper body, or can you press less weight? Put it in this way because you're still fatigued somewhere.
Yeah, so they shouldn't affect each other. I've actually never seen a study on this either specifically, but um, the way it could affect it is if for some reason you're doing like standing overhead press and your
Hmm.
legs are tired, so you can't hold as much weight up or something, or you're trying to do like a bent over barbell row, but your hamstrings are fried, so you can't lift as much and be posturally correct for that movement, right? So there probably is some very small component, but my suggestion would be like just change your exercise so that you're not fatigued, right? Do a
Right.
seated movement, do a cable or something else that just doesn't involve the lower body.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense too. Yeah. To stay a little bit on that subject, but to switch it up a bit about your bachelor's, master's, PhD thesis, you made a lot of research about muscle hypertrophy and the biology behind that. Can you give me and also the listeners a little deep dive of what it actually means, what happens, what drives the muscle growth, for example?
Yeah, of course. So when you exercise or resistance train, you have a couple things that happen pretty immediately, right? So you have an increase in muscle protein synthesis, which is correlated fairly well with muscle growth. So the idea that, you have an exercise, you have this big curve up and it comes back down of resistance training with muscle protein synthesis. You can increase this response by taking protein, right? So that's where the whole protein after a workout comes in. We figured out that it doesn't matter as much that you have the protein right after the workout. It's more just kind of like that you're eating a good amount of protein across the day. Um, so that training sends the signal, right? And you increase protein synthesis, and that accumulates those contractile proteins, which make your muscles grow. It takes a while, is the annoying part. Um, and so that's the primary mechanism of muscle growth is the tension and the muscle protein synthetic response. Now, in your muscles, you also have satellite cells. So they're like nuclei, but they sit on the outside of the muscle. And so when your muscles grow to a certain size, these satellite cells incorporate and allow your muscles to keep growing. And the reason that happens is because your muscle cells, like it's a single cell, is massive. It's one of the biggest cells in your body. It's just, it could run like your whole arm. A whole muscle cell could run your whole arm. Not that they all do, but some of them could. So now you've got all this space and all this machinery and you have to tell it what to do. So those satellite cells come into the muscle and they start telling the areas that are growing kind of what to do. Um, so that idea, and there's a theory behind this called the myonuclear domain theory, is that once you get to a certain muscle size, those satellite cells come in and they allow you to get even bigger. So my like practical application of that is a lot of times if you are in a plateau or something, potentially what could be happening is you could be at your kind of ceiling, your domain, and then you could have to do something, which is just train harder basically, to elevate and then increase those nuclei in the cells to be allow them to grow more. Now, nobody's directly shown that, but that's where the theory and the application kind of come together. So those are the two primary mechanisms of how your muscles grow. Um, for a while, we thought that, and we still do kind of, but that metabolic stress was important, right? The pump, you know, and that's when you have hydrogen ion accumulation. A lot of people would call it like lactic acid. Lactic acid or lactate clears very quickly, so it's like gone in probably like 20 seconds max. Um, and it does stimulate the muscle to grow, but the primary way it does that is it causes your muscles to recruit more muscles to move the weight, right? So if you think
Right.
of blood flow restriction, right? You're actually just occluding the muscle, but you're creating this environment where the muscle is struggling a lot to contract. So now it's recruiting more of those muscles to contract, usually at a lower load. So that's the metabolic stress component. And let's see, I think those are the primary two. There was an idea behind muscle damage being important, and I think that it's important that you like you can't really avoid it. You'll have it at some point, especially when you start training. But what I tell people is muscle damage or DOMS is not something that you should try to strive for. It doesn't really mean you're growing. It's just kind of associated with training.
Okay, due to that feeling you get. Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned in your PhD research, or there's a phrase in it in the title about muscle wasting. Can you elaborate a little bit on that as well?
Yeah. So this kind of relates to what we were talking about before the podcast, where I was like, you know, I went and did a PhD in something that I was really interested in muscle biology. And one of the ways for me to study that was to study muscle loss, right? Which is the opposite of growth.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to lose muscle. So in my PhD, I studied muscle wasting, which is muscle loss, in a lot of different diseases. So mostly cancer. So you'll see a lot of papers on like cancer, cachexia. We did some aging research. We did some kind of denervation, where like if you lost nerve or you had something like go wrong in your spine, your leg. We did diabetes. We did all kinds of models to simulate muscle wasting, and then tried to stop it or learn the mechanisms behind it. Is what the goal was. So
Okay.
that's what the muscle wasting component of my PhD was. So I didn't really get to study muscle growth until I got into my postdoc.
TrackBite is a smart nutrition app that shows you the real nutrient values of your meals, including polyphenols and cooking losses. You can compare dishes, analyze your recipes, and understand how cooking methods affect nutrients, all in one place. Okay. We we or you just described hypertrophy about working out, but the other big aspect obviously is the recovery after the workout. I mean, I think everyone knows to recover or how important it is after the workout, but how much more can you get out of it if you really do your recovery right? If you really rest, if you sleep well, if you obviously eat good, you drink good, how big is the difference if you do it right and you had a good workout, if you don't put any focus on that afterwards? Is there a big change? You know that?
Yeah, so that's a another great, give me all kind of fun research ideas. Um, so so what we know, let's start with nutrition. If you are recovering and you're not eating enough, you won't grow as much as you could, right? So the
All right.
idea there is if you don't have enough energy to create that muscle, you won't make the muscle. Um, or you'll pull the energy from other sources like fat, or bone in some cases, in extreme cases, um, to recover, right? So if your nutrition is off, or let's say you're dieting, so a lot of people, if you're advanced at least, won't gain much muscle in a deficit. Like their goal really is to just hold on to the muscle and not lose it. So when I compete for bodybuilding, my goals switch immediately from, oh, I'm trying to grow to like, oh, I'm just trying to hold on to this stuff so it doesn't disappear. So I think nutrition is probably top two, we'll say, in terms of optimizing recovery. Now, if you say eat 100 grams of protein instead of like 150 grams of protein a day, is there a big difference? Probably not in the short term, but across years, there might be enough of a difference for you to notice.
Yeah.
In terms of like carbohydrate and fat ratios, or like how much percentage of each should you eat, we don't really know that. I tend to prefer a higher carb diet, but I've seen people be successful with a higher fat diet too. So that's kind of like individual, I would say.
Yeah.
As long as you're not like extreme. So the extremes get weird. Like keto is probably not optimal, but neither is like all carbs. Um,
I have the feeling that if you talk about lifting weights and eating good, most people only talk about the proteins and not about the carbs and not about the fats. It's just about, like you just said, I have to reach my goal of 150 grams or whatever. Do you think it's helpful for someone who wants to grow muscles, or if you who wants to, let's say, stay at the same um, amount of muscles, that they track it, like the macronutrients? Or do you think it gets too much into the depth of someone who's, let's say, just starting to work out?
Yeah, so I think it's good to know how much protein is in basic things, right? If you're starting out, you probably need to pay attention just so you can figure that out. right? So like in a scoop of protein, you know that there's 30 grams of protein. Great.
Yeah.
In 4 eggs, you know there's like 25 grams of protein. Great. So figuring out your lifestyle and how much protein and fat and carbs are in different things is good to know because then you can say, oh, I had eggs for breakfast. I had, a sandwich with some meat on it for lunch that had 4 ounces of turkey. I had a protein shake, and then I had, um, some beef item with like vegetables and carbs for dinner. I'm probably good on protein.
Yeah.
But until you learn that and understand how protein works and how much protein is in stuff, it does help to track or maybe check. And the more advanced you get, the more attention you have to kind of pay.
Yeah. Is there any type of formula for carbs and fats what you should take on a daily basis if you want to, let's say, gain muscles? Because I think for proteins you can just look it up and it spits you out a number. There's a lot of papers on it. But is there also something for the other two?
I would say I have a couple articles on the internet about this. As long as you're getting about 20% of your calories from fat, or I like to set a threshold around 30 grams. I wouldn't go below that. Um, I wouldn't go above like 40 or 50% either. So like
Okay.
when you calculate your calories, right, you have to figure out how many you need to just maintain weight.
Yeah.
Then you do your protein first because we know the most about that. So let's say it's 25% of your calories, which is probably about right. Um, then you've got 75 to play with. I would say, you know, do 25 to 30% fat and use the rest for carbs. And you'd probably be okay, but slight adjustments are
Yeah.
fine too.
Yeah. If you have a normal diet and you think you eat a healthy diet, you don't skip out on fish or on veggies, is there any additional needs for supplements in your opinion?
I think that it's very, very hard for the average person to get all of the items they need in their diet. Like I eat a pretty clean, well diversified diet, and I struggle. Um, the main things that I seem to struggle with, and a lot of people do, are fish because it's just hard to get enough fish. So
Yeah.
that's one supplement that like if you're not if you're thinking about overall picture, fish oil is a decent supplement. Vitamin D, a lot of people struggle with vitamin D. Mine's pretty good, but I like drink milk and I have dairy and stuff, so it's
Yeah.
not a big problem. But even in the winter, like it just turned winter, and I started taking some vitamin D supplements because I just am not in the sun very much. Um,
Do you
but God,
do you think if you, let's say, if you don't eat fish, you hate fish, you hate seafood, is it 100% necessary to take fish oil, to take omega 3s, or how does your body react if you don't give him anything of that fish oil, let's say, for example?
yeah. So your body has mechanisms to make the lipid membranes it needs. I think where you struggle is because a lot of people don't eat fish at all,
Yeah.
is optimizing it, right? And not like crazy optimization, but just like, okay, I don't eat fish, so maybe I'll take fish oil, maybe not every day because I can't remember, but a couple times a week. Um, so it's not going to break you, but if you're looking to optimize, it's probably a good idea to supplement with it, especially if you don't eat fish.
Yeah. But is it how do you notice it if you don't eat fish, if you don't supplement it? How does your body react, or how do you know that something is missing?
Yeah, you
Are there
won't.
any signs?
No, they won't.
Okay.
There's nothing, yeah, there's nothing that important. It's not like vitamin C where like you get scurvy if you don't have vitamin C, right?
Okay.
So like there's no disease based on fish. There are diseases based on other vitamins, but most people don't struggle with those.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Brandon, you mentioned at the beginning of the episode that you also are working for the US Army. Are you allowed to talk a little bit about that as well? What's your job
Yeah,
there?
yeah. Yeah, so I do human performance research for the Army. So what I do is I try to think how we can help our troops get bigger, faster, stronger, how we can help them survive in like extreme heat or extreme cold or on top of a mountain. Um, I help them figure out what their training pipelines look like. So, like if you're a special forces example, what do you need that's different from the average person?
Yeah.
So I do a lot of different studies like that. We've done some more like discovery science things recently. So, you know, hey, is there a drug that can help our people do certain something or help them survive, right? It's all about
Okay.
health, protection, and survivability.
Yeah. I talked the other day on my show with someone from the German army, so that's why I'm interested in that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you don't have to tell me if you're not allowed to, but are there any sources available to see online what the the typical soldier or like a special force unit has to do or is mandatory to achieve for being an athlete or being a soldier? Sorry.
Yeah. So there are a lot of courses that will tell you what's kind of in the course online. And I won't like just tell you, but it's out there if you look.
Hmm.
There are a lot of studies on different populations within the army, like the US and like the UK and all kinds of different armies, really, on what they go through in training, what their soldiers look like, their body composition, their fitness tests. A lot of them have fitness tests now, or have for a while. So you can get an idea of how they're performing on those and how like you would do on them. Like it's most people who train would be fine.
Yeah.
The higher you go, the harder it is, right? So like we have a couple training courses that require you to ruck or like carry a backpack with 30 to 60 pounds, which is, 15 to 30 kilos, we'll call it,
Yeah.
for 12 to 20 miles or 10 kilometers. Which is like if you've never done that, that's real hard.
Yeah.
But if you trained for it, you would be fine. It might take a while, but you would be fine.
Yeah, I think that's similar to what my friend here said, that they had to do like a 12-kilometer run or walk with like 30-kilo backpack. And when I heard it, I was like, sounds doable, but when you like actually think about it and you never did it, probably that's hell for sure.
Yeah.
Is it for you in the army also that you have like a periodization for the soldiers, that they have a specific workout that's planned over weeks or months, or is it they show up, it's a workout, they you ring the bell, they have to come here, it's a workout? How is it there?
Yeah, so it varies on unit a lot. So we have a lot of variability. Um, there are lots of units with strength coaches, with physical therapists or like your physiotherapist, um, athletic trainers, and like performance dietitians and things so we have a lot of that where it's very scheduled and structured and the resources are there. But we also have units that don't have that. So it's, hey, who knows the most about exercise? Um, Maybe they've done in some training. Usually they've gone and done some like training. And they'll come back and basically do their best to their knowledge, which is usually enough for most people. But maybe not enough for the people who really struggle. So we have a huge variety. I've programmed for units. It's hard to do periodization like you would a sports team. We do a lot of undulating because stuff comes up. You might get
Right.
deployed, you might get moved, you might get tasked with something. So it's a lot of filling in holes. Um, but in an ideal world, and this does exist, where the units that train every morning at 0600 with a strength coach, they have a plan and they are like boots on the ground.
Does the sorry, does the strength coach also have to do the workouts, or does he also have to do the testings to show the soldiers that he's like the fittest? Or is it same as like in sport teams, you have to be able to communicate the drills, you have to show them how they work, but it's not a problem if you squat less or clean less?
Yeah, so usually they don't have to like outperform anybody. Like
Okay.
it's a knowledge and skill base. It always does help though when you can go do it and do well, even if it's
For
not like
sure.
the top. Like if you're like, I work with a lot of units and it's like, hey, if you can go on their run and keep up with them and like not look like you're dying, that earns a lot of respect,
Yeah.
right? Especially if they're moving at like, a 6 minute mile pace or something like that. If they're so yeah, I think it's useful, but it's not expected or required by any means.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you shouldn't be the worst. If you want them to do anything, you should be also able to do it. But I was interested in that if you really have to be like the top tier athlete, or if you can go around it, if you just can show them, if you can keep up with them. Yeah,
Yeah, and one more point on that is like we have a lot of guys who maybe you had an injury and you can't do that anymore. Like they also appreciate that like, oh, hey, coach used to squat 300 pounds or whatever, but now he blew out his knee, so he can't or she can't, do pull-ups because it might sublux her arm or something. So like
yeah.
they do understand that stuff too.
That was the last question I wanted to talk about or ask you about in the military branch. If there is a soldier who can't do a specific drill, is it as you see as a German in the movies, for example, that it's always the main guy who runs the drills is like the drill sergeant, and if someone doesn't do it, he has a problem, kind of thing, or is it in the real world more or less like if he can't do the cleans, you find a variation about it?
Yeah, in the real world, we do variations because we have a lot of different people, different sizes, different equipment. Like you may not have the same equipment that fits everyone, or you may be doing an exercise or a workout, right? Where you've got 20 guys and gals in the room and you've got to adjust something because the machine's not high enough for three or four of them, right?
Right.
So that's pretty normal. We are often equipment limited because of either money or space.
Yeah.
So it's pretty common to adapt things.
Okay. Yeah. That was my question to finalize about that topic. Yeah. I have a couple more questions for you to
Yeah,
also sum it up a little bit and to take home some advice from you for beginners in strength training. What would your three principles or ideas or, yeah, let's say take home advices be if someone starts working out, he starts going to the gym, what's the most important thing to look out for? Let's say progressive overload or consistency or the nutrition. What would you give them on their ways? This podcast is presented by Like Me, your partner for social media and online marketing from Weiden, and Praxis im Salzhaus, your contact for physiotherapy and health in Altenstadt.
yeah. So I would say consistency is definitely number one. So you want to train in a way that you're hitting muscle groups, 2 to 3 times a week. You're doing somewhere between 8 to 20 sets, probably on the lower end if you're newer. Um, you're overloading and adjusting the equipment, right? That's where a lot of people fall off is if you have a set rep range like 12 and then you do 12 and it's not hard anymore, you do increase the weight. And so overload is very, very key. You see a lot of people stay the same because they can't figure out how to do that.
Yeah,
Um, so there consistency and overload are definitely there. So nutrition is important, but you can get away with a lot before optimizing your nutrition. Like most people, the first couple years of their training, their nutrition is like not good. And that's okay because you can get away with it. The bigger and better you want to be, the more attention you have to pay for it. I would say what's probably more important than like fine tuning that is sleep and let's say recovery, but mostly sleep, like getting your 7 hours a night or close to it as you can, or maybe eight, um, because it's going to play a bigger role in the long run. And there are a couple studies who have done that, who've compared like 7 hours versus 5 hours while training or dieting, and they always show that you do better, whatever better is in the study, if you sleep a little more.
yeah,
So I think those are the basic components of like get those down. and you'll be good for like probably 5 years. Yeah.
Would you say for a beginner it's more important to achieve a progressive overload in optimizing or increasing the weight, or would you say it's more beneficial at the beginning to increase repetitions of a specific drill?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say one is more important than the other. I would say that they kind of have different spectrums. So I'll give you a good example. So you go into the gym and you're newer and you're curling like 20 pounds, right? I've been working out for like 20 years and I only curl like 35 pounds now for the same amount of reps, maybe 40 pounds on a good day, maybe 45, right? So, like, depending on your exercise, it may be easier to do more reps versus more weight. I think people get in trouble with more weight because their form goes down. So
Yeah,
I would say in the beginning, maybe you focus on higher rep ranges, that 12 to 20 even, um, versus putting in a bunch more weight. Once you get over 15 reps, then maybe increase your weight and start over at whatever number, 12 or 10 or 8, whatever it is. Because you're going to be excited about it. You're going to be not quite confident maybe in form. So you definitely want to get form down first.
yeah. Let's move a little bit further along the line and same question basically. Your your top tips for advanced or elite lifters. How can they increase? I know we touched a little bit during the episode, but
Yeah.
let's say someone reached his plateau in a squat or in a bench press. How can he gain more? Switch out the drill to, let's say, a single leg squat or Bulgarians and work on those components? Or what's your take on that? How can someone at a higher level improve?
Yeah, so when it comes to like performance stuff, I would say start looking at pieces of your lifts. So maybe you need to do box squats, or maybe you need to do banded squats where you're focusing on the eccentric, right? So you may have to overload a different point to increase your ability around that sticking point, right? You see people bench press with blocks, you see people bench press do negatives. That's when you can start getting creative and strategic, though, with advanced techniques to get through that plateau. And it and there's no like right answer per se. It kind of depends on the person and what they're doing. So I would say once you get advanced, then it's if you have a problem with performance, figure it out. But if you don't and you're just trying to grow a muscle and you're doing pretty good and you think you're getting bigger, then like if everything is kind of optimized with frequency. So again, 2 to 3 times a week per muscle group. Maybe you're at the higher end of that SEP range. Maybe you. So I've seen this in myself and others is maybe you have to go beyond that 20 set mark, especially for arms or smaller muscles that don't really want to respond. So like my arms don't want to get big. So I do like 30 sets a week,
Right.
which is right on the ability of me to recover. Um, so you have to be kind of creative. I think advanced lifters also have to think about specialization cycles. So you can't do everything at once, right? Maybe you want to grow your shoulders or your back or your chest. Like pick an exercise and say, all right, this 8 weeks, I'm going to focus on this muscle group and see if I can improve it. Or maybe it's like 12 or 15 or 20 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
So those are some neat tricks for the more advanced lifters for training perspective.
Okay. I have one last closing question from a friend of mine here in Germany, and he wants to know from you, because I told him that we will record together today. What would be your ideal leg day for getting bigger and more powerful legs?
Okay,
What would that
so
look like?
yeah, so my ideal leg day, it actually doesn't have a squat in it. Because I don't
Okay.
love squats. And I say that because I don't think for hypertrophy, if like just hypertrophy, I don't think squats and really deadlifts are a good um, ratio of kind of performance to recovery, right? It takes a lot to recover from deadlifts. It takes a lot to recover from squats.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking from a bodybuilder's perspective, again, you're like, how can I get the most bang for my buck? Well, leg press is going to be my like compound, right? Um, and then I mean, realistically, leg extension, maybe RDL. Um, I struggled to do glutes for a really long time. I just didn't do them.
Yeah.
Um, so like I would definitely throw a glute movement in there. Well, recently it's been a Bulgarian split squat. Previously it's been like a pull through, like a cable pull through or something. Um, you can go pretty hard on your calves. So like I'll do like 10 sets of calves because they need a lot of volume. They need so much volume that I'm not even sure we know how much volume they need because we walk on them every day.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I do leg press, probably an RDL, a leg extension, a pull through for glutes, calves. It's like a standing barbell calf, and then maybe like a seated calf too, just to make sure you get both areas. And that's probably it. Like just do as much volume as you need. I'm pretty simple when it comes to programs though.
How many sets of calves you're doing?
Oh, like per leg workout, I'm upwards of 10 sets of calves. Per week, I'm probably like 20 to 25 sets
Okay.
total. Yeah,
I
they
also
just,
need to grow them for upcoming Oktoberfest next year.
yeah, yeah, they just don't
they're,
want to
they're
grow.
too small. Too
Yeah,
small. Brandon, thank you so much for joining me today on my little podcast. Where can people find more about yourself? Where can they look up if they're interested in any research or if they want to get in touch with you, for example?
yeah. So I'm on Instagram, but I don't post very much. So brob underscore 21. I do a lot of my posting on LinkedIn now. So you can just look up Brandon Roberts on LinkedIn. I post
Mhm.
almost every day. It's related to science. Sometimes, the topic varies. Um, if you Google my name, you'll come up with a ton of articles that are all over the place. And I'm sure I have a website out there somewhere. So yeah, reach out if you want. I'm happy to answer, chatted with you, Simon. And it took a week or so, but we got it together.
We got
So
it.
yeah, yeah, happy to chat with anybody.
It was awesome talking to you. Like I said, it was a pleasure. I learned a lot again, and I'll try to tag everything in the description below so people can find out more about yourself. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much. I wish you all the best, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Brandon. Take care. Bye bye. Thanks for listening to the show. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the podcast, leave a rating or comment, and share it with someone who loves sports science. And for more content, follow me on Instagram at science underscore in underscore sports underscore. See you in the next episode.